when we journal, especially when we focus on those roses of the day, we are practicing how we think about gratitude. We're finding moments in the day that made us smile, that made us laugh, that brought joy to our day. And when we focus on those beautiful moments instead of the negative moments, it allows us to live happier and healthier lives.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Mind Body Planet podcast. Today's an exciting episode, even though I'm pretty sure I say that about every episode. But we are talking with Royce Cook. She is the founder of Wellgrl, which is a tight-knit community all about mindful journaling, how you can kind of shift your mindset on journaling and really embrace it to experience all the benefits that you can get from journaling. In this conversation, we're talking about how you can kind of shift that narrative, kind of the techniques that she uses, the method of journaling, which is the roses, thorns, and buds method, and just a lot of really great advice and information for anybody who wants to get started into journaling or maybe doesn't really understand why people journal. And kind of we're just diving deep into all of that today. It's a super cool episode, and ever since speaking with Royce, it has actually encouraged me to keep up with journaling. So that way I can really feel a lot of the impact that journaling can have on us when it comes to just personal growth and being better in our relationships and better understanding our emotions and getting a better quality sleep is something we talk about in this episode. There's a lot of really cool things that we can get whenever we prioritize journaling and expressing our thoughts and emotions in a really productive way. So I'm excited for today's episode. So let's go ahead and hop right into it. Hello and welcome to the podcast. It's so good to have you on. If you could please introduce yourself to everybody.
Yeah, oh my gosh. So excited to be here. I'm Royce Cook, and I'm the founder of Wellgrl. And we are a wellness brand that's pioneering collaborative journaling through methods like roses, thorns, and buds.
Amazing. I'm so excited to dive into our conversation today. I know we were talking before recording. I have your journal, but I have not actually done anything in the journal. So I'm so excited for you to talk more about that method and how we can all benefit from more of a mindful practice when it comes to journaling. I love your messaging. So I'm excited for today's topic and really diving into it. I don't know if you've listened to the podcast before, but I like to start it out with our week's favorites. So I have one that I would like to share. And then if you have one, you're more than welcome to share too. So I'll give you a second to think about it. I'll go ahead and go first. My week's favorite for this week is bread making. I've been on this bread making binge, if you want to call it that. It all started, my For You page was showing me all these bread videos and people talking about how easy it is to make homemade bread. And of course, me watching it, I was like, this looks really difficult, but I want to try. So I tried it. I've been really into sourdough bread lately. It's been really fun, actually. It's a fun way to really get in the kitchen. Obviously your hands are in the dough. So I don't feel obligated to grab my phone and do any kind of screen time or anything like that. So it's fun to be able to do that. And then also just at the end of it all, be able to see the thing that you made. I think there's something so cool about that. It's super cool. So bread making is my favorite this week. I made a loaf yesterday and it is my best loaf yet. So I'm oh, I'm getting better.
Oh my gosh, that's so exciting. I also see those videos and the bread turns out so creative. It's like art seeing the bread. And I'm sure it's art during the process as well. It's very involved but the result is incredible. The bread looks amazing.
Yeah, it is. There's actually some people that I follow that will actually paint their sourdough before they bake it. And I have no idea how they do it, but now I'm determined to figure it out. It looks so beautiful. They do flowers and I don't even know. I guess they use food coloring or something, but it just seems, it's just crazy the things you can do with bread. Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I actually have two. So one would be this homestick candle that I have burning over here. It was a gift, and so the brand, they capture these nostalgic memories and scents, and they put it in a candle. So I was gifted the Arizona one, and it smells like fresh linen and notes of citrus, and it's soy and non-toxic. It's the best thing ever. And then this protein smoothie that I recently picked up at my local cafe has been my favorite midday treat. It has vegan protein powder and strawberries and bananas and honey, and it's been amazing. It's been great.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Okay, a
Yeah.
homestick candle. I know
Yeah.
what you're talking about. I've seen that brand.
Yeah.
Are you from Arizona?
I'm not. I did go to school in Arizona, so
Okay,
it was a nice nod to that, but, it smells amazing. I'd buy it just for the smell.
just for the smell. I love it. I've never bought anything from Homesick, but it's definitely something that like I've thought about and I've heard people really love those candles. Well, I definitely want to hop into our conversation because I'm so excited about it. If you're ready, but please introduce yourself, introduce your journey with wellness if you can, and kind of how you came to creating Well Girl.
So with Wellgrl, it came around January of last year. It was an idea that I had, and I like to call it a download. And that's kind of how it felt. It felt like one evening I got this idea to add all these journal prompts and quotes and affirmations that I was using on my own personal wellness journey. And I wanted to share that with a larger community. I wanted to share that with women that also wanted to embark on this journey for themselves. And it took off. It was really well received. And I think that was really because I think a lot of women and people in general, when they get started with wellness journey, it almost feels like, where do I start, right? And it feels kind of lonely in a way. So having this kind of newsletter that was sent out every Sunday gave them inspiration and motivation to get started, especially with, journaling, right? Getting started with that and staying consistent with it.
Mhm. So, can you explain for people who aren't familiar with Well Girl, kind of what does that consist of? What does that look like?
So Wellgrl, like I said, started as a newsletter, but it grew into a bigger brand and a bigger mission of helping women start and stay consistent with journaling. And a lot of what we do is create resources. We have a journal all for that mission. And so we tied that into something bigger, right? Because we noticed that with journaling, a lot of people like to know the benefits of it. And so we're really focused on nurturing personal and positive relationships. So helping women nurture that relationship to themselves and others has been our heart.
Yeah, I love that. So, it's really seems like it's turned into this sort of community of like people who can come together and hold each other accountable to really see these benefits of journaling.
In a one-liner, I like to say it's empowered women nurturing life's connections, and it really truly feels like that.
I love that. What a beautiful way to put this community into one line. So, what was your journey like with journaling that kind of led you down this path? So, you said it was a download, but what were you experiencing in those moments leading up to creating this newsletter? I guess was the beginning of it all.
So I had just finished my master's degree, feeling very burnt out. And knowing that I wanted a way to express myself, an outlet of sorts to kind of reconnect to myself and get back to just me. And so that was the inspiration. It came as, like I said, a download, and it was this need that to pause, to slow down, and to get back to me, understand why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling, and be more curious about my emotions. So that led to a newsletter and sending out journaling inspo that I would source online. And that was really helpful for me. And so to be able to share that with this community has been incredible. And now with the journal has been just another extension of our brand and our mission, all to help women on their own journeys.
So, one of the foundations with your journaling method is your roses, thorns, and buds method. Can you talk more about what that is and kind of how it's changed the way that you view journaling now?
So the method was adopted by Boy Scouts of America, and they would go out in the field and they would write down the roses, thorns, and buds. So your roses are anything positive, small wins, accomplishments that you've experienced. Your thorns are going to be the negatives, right? The low points, pitfalls, anything that just didn't go to plan. And then your buds are new opportunities, growth, new ideas, goals. And so they'd come back and they'd share all these things that they learned, and they would form this collective of information and knowledge sharing that helped everyone be better. And everyone felt very supported and like they could relate to things that happened. And so, with that, adapting that into a journal has helped me just ease into the practice. So now I don't see journaling as this like big scary monster. I see it as a way to be curious and to explore me And it's made it so much easier to approach the practice without feeling guilty for not staying consistent some days or feeling like it was overwhelming with, multi-question journal prompts that just dug a little too deep some days. It just made it really easy to document the things that I experienced in just a really easy way that made journaling approachable.
I love that. Because I think from my personal experience with journaling, it has always felt like something that felt extremely overwhelming to me. And I think one of the things I struggled with is just not knowing where to start. And two, this almost like fear of it, if I write it down, it must be true. And maybe that's something I should talk about like with my therapist and really break that down. It's just kind of it's an overwhelming thing, and once you start kind of diving into your feelings and how certain situations make you feel in them, it can feel like, I guess, a little daunting. And it seems like this is a method to really help break down those feelings and recognize, to overcome them, I guess, or to at least acknowledge and have gratitude behind each and every experience that you're writing down.
You said something really key, and it was if I write it down, then it must be true. And I
Mhm.
think that was my biggest obstacle when it came to journaling, right? It wasn't that I didn't always know what to write about or I didn't know, how long I should be writing for. I hesitated with journaling because there was a level of honesty and bravery that I wasn't ready to get to just yet. And that kept me back from journaling it because if I wrote it down, then it's true and then it's real and it made it more real than keeping these thoughts in my head that thoughts are fleeting, they'll pass. But if I write it down, it was something very permanent and solid about the writing down of what I was feeling that felt so heavy and it felt new. It was new to express myself in that way on paper and then to reflect and read it was intimidating. So it did take, being brave, going to therapy, practicing being authentically me that allowed me to really open up in journaling.
Is it just something that comes with experience, being able to be more comfortable and be brave with what you're experiencing to be able to write them down?
And see, that's the beauty of journaling is that the more that you do it, the more confident you'll be in it. And so getting started in any way you can is powerful because it takes just that one day and the next day to help build that confidence, those reps. And then you'll go deeper and deeper and deeper. And then the more you do that, you're learning yourself. You're learning what works for you. You're learning, what you like to write about and what you don't like to write about. So you're crafting this experience that's personal to you.
Yeah, it almost sounds like exercising a muscle. You have to do it to be able to get good at it and feel comfortable with it. I love that. Okay, so you mentioned that a lot of people, when it comes to journaling, want to know the benefits behind it. And I'm just curious, what would you say are some of the more, I guess, unexpected benefits behind journaling?
For me, specifically with collaborative journaling and this roses, thorns, and buds method, it's helped me nurture my relationships, not to just myself, but to other people. Because with collaborative journaling, I'm inviting people into this practice with me. And it's been incredible to see the impact on my friends and my family, right? When I'm introducing journaling in this way, or I'm asking about their roses and their thorns and buds of the day, it helps them kind of get into that mindset of like, oh, maybe I should be writing this down. Maybe I should be documenting this. So, encouraging other people has been an unexpected benefit. Nurturing my relationships has been unexpected. Enhanced emotional intelligence is huge because when I journal, I'm learning about myself more and more. So, I'm able to like build this awareness of who I am that allows me to kind of navigate life that much more better and just from a place of just clarity. I'm understanding things a lot better. Better sleep quality. I love this one because if you know at night you get a lot of thoughts, your brain is really hard to kind of slow down and pause and turn off so you can get a good night's sleep. With journaling, I'm able to write down any of the little things that are bothering me or things that I want to remember in the morning. So being able to jot them down and have them kind of stored away allows me to calm my mind and ease into sleep a lot better. Memory recall has been a really good one for me. I have to write things down. I'm that type of person. If you tell me something, I have to write it down in the moment because I'm probably going to forget, not because I want to, but life is busy and things come up. So being able to just practice that memory recall when I'm writing in my journal, I'm remembering things that I may have forgotten throughout the day, good or bad. So that's been a muscle that I've been exercising a lot with journaling.
I love that. Okay, so two of the ones that you mentioned that I think are so interesting to me is that it's better sleep quality and then your memory recall. I guess leading up to this, I probably wouldn't have ever thought that, but it is very surprising to know that the more you journal, the better you get at both of those things. And it makes sense, right? Like you think about your memory recall. If you write it down and express, say, hey, this is kind of what happened today, and just kind of recount your day, that you would memorize that better. Like I was a theater kid back in the day, and one of the ways that I memorized my lines for the plays that I was in was I would write them down because it activates another part of your brain for memory. So that makes total sense. I feel like you just connected something in my mind.
Well, good, good. And yeah, memory recall, it's a muscle that we can all, benefit from like practicing and getting better at. Just because I think throughout our day, like I mentioned, we kind of forget moments that are really special. And so when we write them down, we're able to kind of reflect on them, and that could lead to better, bigger explorations. Another positive benefit that I really, really love is heightened gratitude awareness. I think this may be a common one that people know about, but I just really want to reiterate it. When we journal, especially when we focus on those roses of the day, we are practicing how we think about gratitude. We're finding moments in the day that made us smile, that made us laugh, that brought joy to our day. And when we focus on those beautiful moments instead of the negative moments, it allows us to live happier and healthier lives.
I believe it. I totally believe it. I think in the moments when I've been better with journaling and I'm able to actually write down the things that I was thankful for that came to me in those days, I was a happier person almost because it allowed me to open my eyes. Even if it was the worst day, I could have sat back and been like, well, I'm glad I had a really good cup of coffee this morning, or I'm glad I have my dog that I can pet and really snuggle with at the end of the day. And it does make you more thankful of the things around you. When I get away from journaling, I don't feel the same way. Like for example, yesterday I had a pretty bad day. It was just kind of a lot happening, very overwhelming day. And I was able at the end of the day to think about, well, I'm sitting here and I put on the Taylor Swift Long Pond sessions on Disney Plus. I'm not sure if you've ever seen it, but it was my first time watching it. And so I was like, I'm so thankful that even though today was like not a very good day, I have a fiance who loves me, who was very, very understanding and was like, I'm so sorry you had a bad day. And this, living room that I'm able to lay on my couch and watch this documentary for an hour and a half.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really beautiful. And yeah, the gratitude, it helps us remember that, yeah, we may have bad days, but there are still beautiful moments in that day that we can pick out and focus on that help us a lot.
Absolutely. I think when a lot of people think about journaling, and we're kind of breaking it down here, really following this roses, thorns, and buds, we're following that kind of method and kind of breaking down what journaling looks like. It doesn't have to look a certain way in order for it to be effective. Can you help people who are listening to this who are still feeling like very intimidated? Maybe they've never journaled before in their life and they're listening to this and they're feeling like, okay, maybe there's a lot of benefits here. Maybe I should try journaling. How can you help them kind of get over that sort of stereotype that it has to look a certain way and it has to feel a certain way?
I think too with journaling, social media kind of skews our perception of like what it is. And
Mm,
I think a lot of times on social media, we see journaling as like this poetic and very romanticized, and you have your aesthetic journal and there's calligraphy and it's really beautiful. And journaling can absolutely be that, but it doesn't have to be. So I think a lot of the times when we try to adapt journaling into our lives, we should remember a couple things. One, ditching perfectionism, and that's one thing that I am very type A. So I love for things to be very neat and buttoned up. And with journal writing, it's been nothing like that. My journal is all over the place in the best way because I'm really shedding and evolving and being real and authentic and raw. And so I've ditched the idea of this has to be perfect. My writing has to be perfect. The grammar has to be perfect, and just allowing the words to flow really effortlessly, and that being like a reflection of my day. Like, this is my day. I misspelled a bunch of words on the page. My writing does not look beautiful or fancy, and if it does, great. But if it doesn't, I embrace that and I invite that imperfection in. Another one would be exploring different formats, and this is the key to, I think, staying consistent with journaling. Because a lot of the times we get very pigeonholed into like what we're doing,
Mhm.
writing one way. Maybe you're doing morning pages every morning, and you're getting bored of that. So being open to changing up the style, the format, the method of your journaling to keep it interesting, to keep it fresh, to help you stay consistent. Time flexibility. If you journal in the morning and that's no longer working for you, I think a lot of the time people are like, okay, if it's not in the morning, then I'm not doing it at all. I'm not gonna try to find another time. And I encourage you to find a different time. If the evenings work better, do it in the evenings. Just try to create a ritual and a routine around journaling at whatever time best suits your schedule. And then it can adapt. Journaling is very dynamic, it's adaptable. So as your life changes, make sure that your journaling routine is changing with it.
I love that you mentioned that because I myself have experienced this feeling of almost getting bored when it becomes a little too mundane, I guess, in a little bit. And I think sometimes it's really easy to feel guilty if you're like, I don't want to do this, even though you know it's good for you, or you know that there's benefits from it at the end of the day. It's almost like exercising. I keep going back to this exercising, exercising a muscle so you can get better at what you're doing. And I love that you said it's okay to switch it up. If you're getting bored of it in one aspect of your life or one part of your day, it's okay to take a step back and be like, how can I make this more fun and more interesting so I'm more likely to keep up with it? That's so cool.
Another benefit, and I have to mention this because it's something that I've been doing a lot more, is being playful. So with journaling, I think a lot of the times like it's very serious and we see it as like the serious thing that we have to do, and we have no emotions of like comedy can come out of this. But I encourage you to be comical when appropriate in your journaling. Adding some lightness to it helps it feel less like a chore and more of like this thing that you want to do.
What are some ways that you've been able to implement this playfulness in your journaling?
I've been cracking jokes in my journal. I've
Yeah.
been I've been making yeah, I've been a real comedian, and I've been enjoying it, just reflecting back and seeing my writing and reading how playful I am. Even on the days when, I might have had like the worst day ever, I'll reflect on my journal and I'll see like, okay, in that moment I was happy and I'll be happy again. It reminds me of like emotions and our feelings are fleeting, and they come and they go, they ebb and they flow. And because you feel one way, say today, doesn't mean that you're going to feel that way forever. And it reminds you that you were happy, you laughed, and you'll laugh again.
That's so sweet and so special. I'm curious to know your thoughts on this. You mentioned that you reflect on past journal entries. Is that something you recommend people to do once they start getting into this habit of journaling?
Absolutely. It's something that even my therapist, you know, recommended I do, because when I read back, I get to witness my evolution. And that's been so beautiful of seeing like how I'm overcoming the thorns, right? Overcoming those negative emotions and those tough times, and having proof that I experienced this negative emotion, but I got past it. I overcame it. So what's so different about this new negative emotion or this new negative thing I'm dealing with? I have proof that I overcame this and I can overcome this, that because I've done it in the past, I've done it before. And so when I reflect on it and I read these entries, it just builds up this confidence and faith that, whatever I'm going through, it'll pass.
Interesting, because I don't know if I've ever reflected on any of my journal entries, so I feel like I'm really learning a lot and feeling really inspired to really hold myself accountable and do this more so I can get all of these cool benefits that you've mentioned, better sleep, because I my mind does race before I go to bed. There are times I pull out my phone and I start writing a to-do list for the next day because I'm like, I can't sleep if I don't write this down.
The better sleep quality is game changer, because again, like you have all these thoughts and maybe you want to work through them. And so journaling at night, again, time flexibility, whatever works for you, but if you do choose in the evening, it helps so much to just release all of your feelings, all of your emotions, you're getting it onto paper, and you're not worried about, oh, I'm going to forget something. It's right there. It'll be there in the morning. But it allows you to free up your brain space so you can quiet your mind so you can sleep. And what I really want to, make sure that women know that if you choose a method, one, choose it because you're going to be transformed through that. So, what's your transformation? For me, when I started journaling, I wanted to establish a consistent routine, but I also wanted to nurture my relationship. So, that was the transformation. I noticed that, I wasn't, actively listening to my friends and my family, or I was, so busy and involved in my own life that I wasn't sharing or being supportive of them. So the transformation I wanted with journaling was to be more supportive, to be more empathetic towards them. And so seeing that and knowing that that's my why and my North Star has helped me stay consistent.
I love that you have a why behind it, and that's what makes it easier to stick with.
And if you don't have a why, it can feel like a chore. It's like, why am I doing this? What am I getting out of this? But if you're intentional about your journaling, if you say, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do this because I want this transformation, or I want to be better at this, it helps you stay consistent. You're motivated now because you know exactly why you're doing this.
I love it. I love it so much. If we go back to the roses, thorns, and buds method of journaling, I think this is like such a wonderful method for people who are new to journaling because it kind of gives you direction. And then as you continue to grow, I think you can always, wiggle around and not exactly use that exact method or do whatever works for you in that moment. But to start out with, it gives really great direction. Do you recommend just looking at your day that day and what happened during that day? Or do you recommend looking at more like big picture ideas?
I say a combination. Some days I journal just about that day, and some days I'll journal about a specific situation. So, back to what you were saying about like if you're going to reflect on your year, right? Your roses could be for 2023. What were the things that made you the most proud? Like, what were your accomplishments that year? And then your thorns could be, what didn't you accomplish? What were some of the challenging points and moments of that year? And then your buds could be, what do you want to work on? What do you want 2024 to be for you? What goals do you want to achieve? So if you think about it that way, you can apply the RTB method to whatever situation, because all it's doing is helping you see the holistic picture of what's going on. So you're not focused on just the positive or just the negative or just the new opportunities, but you're seeing your life in this really beautiful, like laid out way that has everything categorized so you can take action on exactly what you need to do.
Okay. Okay. So a combination of the both then depends on the day.
And it's adaptable and it's dynamic. So the framework, again, it applies to so many things. So just choosing things that you want. It's all about you. It's a very personal thing, and you get to make it your own space.
I love it. I love it so much. I love that we're doing this deep dive into journaling and showing that there are so many benefits behind it and that there are different methods and you can wiggle around and make it interesting for you and still get to have deeper connections with the people around you in your life and really see if you stick with something like this and you know your why behind doing it. There's actually a lot you can gain from it. And I think emotional intelligence is probably one of the best things you could do because a lot of people don't really have that. I think as we age, we don't have as many people asking critical questions. And if we can't ask ourselves these critical questions, then there's no way to really continue to grow, in my opinion.
Right. And I love what you said about like asking yourself questions. And that's one thing that I've challenged myself to do is be very honest about how I'm feeling and what I'm experiencing, but doing it in a way that's really gentle and non-judgmental. I never want to sit down at the journal and be very just, bashing myself for things that happened or why these things didn't happen. I like to be very gentle and intentional about why I'm doing it, but do it in a way that doesn't feel like I'm, not giving myself the same grace I would show to my friends and family, right? So I remember and encourage other people to remember, be graceful, show yourself grace, be forgiving in that moment because you're doing something very brave.
Yeah, be gentle. I think you mentioned one of the big challenges you had was overcoming perfectionism. And I think that being gentle with yourself when you're starting this journey is probably one of the most important things to rely on and to really lean into.
Yeah, especially since it's a new habit. You're not gonna, be an expert at it to start. And lean into that. Lean into like, oh, you don't have to be an expert. Like you can be a beginner and being a beginner is good. Like you're learning and you're growing in this practice and you're crafting your skills because journal writing, it is vulnerable. It's deeply personal. And so there's no rush to get it perfect the first time. You get to expand and explore as you go along in your journey.
Mhm. Definitely. Okay, so for anybody who is listening and they're feeling inspired, they want to start journaling, they're not really sure where to start, what would be your advice for somebody who wants to get started into doing something like this?
I would say just that, get started. If journaling that day is you writing one word on a piece of paper that describes your entire day, you did it. You journaled. And then every day, build on that. Don't ever feel like it has to be this, dissertation or this like academic, paper or thesis to start. It's not requiring that. It's requiring you just to be brave, pen to paper, and to just journal about your day, write about how you're feeling. If it's one word, keep it at one word that day. If it's, a drawing, keep it at a drawing. It's whatever self expression that works for you in that moment, and it doesn't have to be anything more than that day. Just get started and finding a method that works for you. Like we talked about, there's so many ways to journal and there's so many journals out there. It's really important on finding what works for you. If RTB works for you, fantastic. I'd love for you to do the RTB method because it works for me and it's just a quick way to write maybe one rose, one thorn, one bud and close the journal and meet at it, the next day. It doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's whatever works for you and no guilt, no judgment, no pressure, just being honest and brave to start.
I think that's amazing. I think when we talk about reflecting on it too, it's interesting if you do adopt the RTB method that if you notice you're really putting down you have the same roses or you have the same thorns or the same buds, it's kind of being able to address, okay, I've said that I've wanted to do this goal for a really long time, but I haven't actually done it. So maybe it's time for me to do it. Kind of a way to hold yourself accountable.
Absolutely. I was going to say, I have a lot of buds and I write them down, regularly. And it takes me writing them down, but also when I reflect on it, I'm like, oh, wait, I actually didn't start on that goal and I want to start on it. So again, yeah, it keeps me accountable. Like if I write it down, not only am I improving my memory recall of like, oh, that's a goal of mine this year, but I'm even more motivated to do it because I wrote it down. I'm holding myself accountable to it because I want the good that comes from it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, do you have any other pieces of advice for anybody that is listening? Anything you'd like to share with them that you found valuable over the course of getting more into this and learning about journaling and really deep diving into it all? Anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think with journaling or anything you do on your wellness journey, just to remember that it is very dynamic. Just remembering that, your journey is all about you. And the common thread with all of it is just finding and maintaining that balance. So, as long as that's your goal, if your goal is, I want to find wellness and make it for me, make it personal for me, then you're doing the right thing and choosing different, tools and resources that aid you on that mission.
I love it. I think that's great advice. And I hope we can listen to this episode and you guys who are listening can listen to this episode and really take away just all this wonderful advice that will guide you to becoming a better version of yourself and entering into this, mindfulness place when it comes to journaling, that it doesn't have to be perfect and you can really do something that works for you. It doesn't have to be this kind of stereotypical way that people talk about journaling. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Royce. Can you please share where people can find you, where they can find Wellgrl, and be a part of this community that you're building?
Yes, I loved being here. If you are interested in Wellgrl, please follow us on Instagram at Wellgrl. All our resources to our Substack newsletter are linked in the bio, as well as our Amazon link to buy the journal.
Amazing. Yeah. And I have the journal. So if anybody's listening and is questioning whether or not they should, I really love it. I think it's got a lot of really great information in there and it kind of lays out each of your roses, thorns, and buds. So I would recommend it for anybody listening.
Fantastic.
Well, it was wonderful to have you on, Royce. Thank you so much and have a great day, I guess.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we have made it to good climate news. Today's article is from USA Today, and surprise, surprise, it is about the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl 58, which was 2024 Super Bowl, is the first to be fully powered by renewable energy. Pretty freaking cool if you ask me. Obviously, there's a lot of interesting things to this because I know there were a lot of like private jets that were flown to be able to attend the Super Bowl. But as far as the Super Bowl itself, it's pretty cool that we get to see it become powered by renewable energy for the first time. I will link that article in the show notes for anybody interested. And thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you know anybody who you think could have value or find value from this episode, please feel free to send it to them. It's the best way for the podcast to get introduced to new ears and new listeners. Of course, if you like the podcast, you can always rate us on whatever platform you're listening to. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at Crystal and Geyer. I post sustainability and wellness tips pretty much every single day. If you want to follow the podcast, you can follow at Mind Body Planet Podcast on Instagram. And I will see you guys next week. Heads up, I'm going to be taking off February 19th for the federal holiday, so we won't have any episodes coming out then. And then the following week, we're actually introducing a brand new series, which I'm very excited about, with the founder of Dip Hair Care, Kate Asraf. We've had her on the podcast before. She's so fun and interesting to talk to, and she's got a lot of information and just a wealth of knowledge to share. And so I'm very excited about this. We're going to start a little mini series. I think we're going to call it Dip Into It because we're going to like dip into all these topics. And I'm excited to have another person who's more regular on the show to talk about some of these sustainable topics and just wellness topics and just kind of experiences that we've experienced in our life that we think other people could find value from. So I'm excited to introduce that series to the show. With that being said, that is everything. I'm pretty sure all my updates, all the things. So I will see you guys next week. Bye.